Disclaimer: the information in this podcast should not be relied on as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're suffering from any mental health issues, we recommend that you seek medical advice before using these resources. We make no warranties that this information is correct, complete, or reliable or suitable for any purpose. Welcome, everybody. I'm Misty Beryle, the owner of Mindful Living Wellness Center here in Salt Lake City, Utah. A place to bring intentional healing and balance through physical, mental, and emotional care. Our goal is to help you in your journey through education of self-sustaining tools such as talk therapy, life coaching, emotional wellness, mindful yoga, and any variety of healing and wellness. Our purpose for these podcasts are to share information about staying well, however that may look like for you, our listener. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Please Wash Your Hands. Today we're going to be talking with Cami Ball, and here with me is Kelli Jacobson to kind of have a part two to our silver linings. We discussed last week how everyone's different in the way they adjust to stressful events. Some people exhibit those symptoms of depressions or anxiety, and other people express resilience. And so we're going to invite Cami to speak with us and tell us a little bit about herself and how this has affected her. So if you don't mind, Cami, Kelli and I will just have you jump in and introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thanks, Kelli and Misty, for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I am a partner at a company called Proven CFO, which is how I know Misty. And I also teach accounting classes at Utah Valley University. And then I'm also a wife and a mother.
Full plate.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So tell us a little bit how it's looked like to you as we've gone into these unprecedented times, as COVID's been affecting all of us really all over the world. How can you tell us a little bit what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen the impact on multiple fronts, just because of all the different things that I'm involved in. So I'll kind of briefly touch on how I've seen it on different aspects of my life and in my professional life. So obviously at UVU, the decision was made there and at all the universities across the country to move all of the in-person classes to finish up the semester on an online format. And that also goes for my kids. I've got a 16-year-old in high school, I've got a 13-year-old in junior high, and I've got an almost 11-year-old in elementary. And
Wow.
so students everywhere are now doing online platform for the rest of their learning. And essentially what happened is right before UVU's spring break, the decision was made that, okay, professors, you guys need to move all your classes online over the next week and be ready for students to come back to a completely different format. So that was spring break week. This was probably the worst spring break I've ever had in my entire life.
So you pretty much did not get a spring break.
No, I was working extra hard that spring break week. So, so it was stressful. Some of the things I noticed kind of looking back and as we were going through that is there were quite a few professors, and myself included, that had never had to do this. We were always used to going into the classroom, seeing our students, and dealing with them face to face. And all of a sudden, kind of overnight, it felt like we're tasked with completely adjusting, revamping, modifying, and trying to figure out that balance between how do we make the students able to be successful and finish up the semester strong, because this is important to them, right? It's their college
Right.
career. And how do we make ourselves successful? And those can be two different things at times. So it took a lot, and it was amazing. Like the university, the amount of work and effort that went in that week to convert, I don't even remember how many hundreds of classes in a week's time from online from face to face to online was unprecedented.
Wow.
Uh, so the one thing it taught me is that you know, when you've got a mass problem like that, if everybody does their little part and takes care of their little portion of the big piece of, or the big picture, that it's amazing what can happen, right? So it pushed a lot of professors out of their comfort zone, professors that had never worked with lots of technologies, and now they were having to learn new technologies. And we all just kind of had to do our little pieces to make the entire process for UVU successful. And so the silver lining for me on that was, sometimes these challenges push us out of our comfort zones. And I think everybody across the world has been in that situation lately,
Right.
right? Is being pushed out of your comfort zone. And it really challenges you and teaches you what you can handle.
You know,
And yeah.
last week, in our part one of this Silver Lining podcast, Kelly spoke to us a little bit about the post traumatic growth. And Kelly, it sounds like that's exactly what Cami has seen her peers and herself go through. Can you touch on that again a little bit about what that PTG looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cami describes it perfectly. So, a situation that can be traumatic for all of us, like our world flipping upside down and overnight, essentially having to dive into things that we've never done before. That's traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bad phrase. But what you're also saying on the flip side of that is that there's been huge growth through that experience. Like you've learned to come together as a team. Each of you had a part and played a role in that. And then also like learning that how much strength you have and that you maybe didn't even recognize that you had before. So I think that was a great example.
Right.
Yep, exactly. And then just, on with my company, Proven CFO, all of a sudden we were thrust into this world of newness. Like what do our clients really, really need?
Hmm.
Right. And what our clients really needed was they needed help with loans and they needed loan disaster assistance. And so the last few weeks at Proven CFO, you know, our core business has kind of been set over to the side and we jumped headfirst into loan processing, which is not one of our core businesses, right? But that's been a completely new path of helping clients that we would have, without this situation, we would have never even needed to do, right? And so
Right.
I've seen that with some businesses, and my husband works for a local business, and his company has headed down a path of change that they would have never thought was going to bring them any success and that they never focused on. And I think just in a general business sense, um, I've seen businesses all over the place doing that, just trying to keep their doors open and doing things that they never expected to do, never wanted to do, never even thought about doing. We live close to a theater, and they started putting up outside movies, like drive-in movies. So they couldn't open their building and show their movies inside. So they put up giant screens on the side and the back of their buildings, and now they're doing drive-in movies.
I
To,
love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and they're selling their concessions curbside because they make their own popcorn, and so you can get theater popcorn. But I've just
What
seen businesses,
resiliency.
yeah, just do anything they can. And I think in the long run, it's going to benefit everybody overall, right? That silver lining of, hey, we didn't ask for this, we didn't want to do this, but we've been able to accomplish some amazing things that we never would have thought would benefit our business. And I think those
Mm,
things, if we're smart about it, can benefit us in the long run.
I agree. I agree. And part one of the podcast was actually labeled Building Resiliency Through Seeing the Silver Lining. And, the silver lining comes from, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the storm.
Yeah.
You see the sun just beam behind the cloud, and it's literally this silver lining. And that's what we're focusing on so that we can get through this like nasty raging storm, because it is amazing to see the community come together. And like you said, Cami, earlier, where everybody does a small part to help build each other. And sometimes that's just supporting local businesses. Sometimes that's being an emotional support, financial support, or, in whatever way that looks like for you to be able to support each other in a community or business. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch businesses just be so resilient, and just people in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? People just being resilient, and they're just doing what they have to do. And, from a personal standpoint, being at home with my three boys and my husband, we're all working at home together now, which is nothing I ever pictured,
No one
ever,
would choose
ever,
that.
ever.
I'm nodding my head.
Yeah.
I'm relating to everything you're saying.
Yeah. But the personal silver lining on the personal side for me is, one of my biggest fears was always, if there was ever a natural disaster, and I always thought, like, hurricane, tornado, earthquake, something like that. My biggest fear was always, am I going to be able to get my family home together
All right.
and know that everybody's safe and everybody's okay, right? Am I going to be separated from them when something happens? And so I am extremely grateful every day, even when it's frustrating and we're walking on each other and maybe getting on each other's nerves, that we are able to all be home together while the storm's kind of raging outside the walls of our home.
Right.
That we're all together. I know where my family is. I know they're safe. I know they're healthy. Um, so that's been a blessing. And shockingly enough, my three boys have gotten along better since we've been quarantined, essentially, than they ever have, ever.
What does that look like? Tell me about that.
About them getting along.
Yes. I think everybody wants to know the secret. No.
I honestly don't know. So the way we have them set up, my husband's in his office, I'm in my office, and then we have the three boys in the kitchen, kind of in the main area, kind of all sitting fairly close to each other. Two are at the bar and one's over at a desk. And so they usually all get on to do school together. So I think one thing is, they're seeing each other go through the same thing,
Interesting. Yeah.
right? When they're away at their own schools doing their own thing, they don't have anything in common, right? But they're actually sitting by each other. And I actually once in a while hear them ask their brother questions, or them helping each other. So I think, I honestly can't explain it. It's not what I ever thought would happen, but there's something, and I wish I could bottle it up so that I could, release it later when it's not going to be this way. But they're all commiserating together, right? They're all struggling together. So, and they're seeing Ray and I working, and we're all kind of, have our schedules of, we all got to go do our jobs. Theirs are obviously a lot shorter than ours, but, and then they're just home together. They're playing Xbox together more than they have, they just know that they're together. And I honestly, I can't explain why, but they are just, it's very peaceful in our home, which
Wow.
is, I can't explain it,
Well, it's
but it is a
interesting.
huge, huge silver lining. And I'm
Yeah.
getting to the point where I'm actually going to be sad when we all start going our separate ways, because I'm afraid that's going to stop. So
That's
I
a
got to
really
figure out a
good.
way to hold on to it.
Right. And I think that's a great podcast subject, you guys. How do we now adapt back to the new norm? We'll have to revisit that.
Yeah, how
It's
do we hold
interesting.
on to the good things
Right.
and, adjust to the things that we're missing?
Well, it's interesting the realization that we're all connected, that our impact on each other, even down to the siblings level. We talked a little bit about the workplace and the community, and then in the home, seeing how just maybe even, and Kelli, maybe you can touch on this, but that validation of, you're working just as hard as I am. I'm seeing that now, rather than like, you're at your school, I'm at mine, my problems, my problems, my problems. We kind of get in that rut, but being together and seeing each other's struggles, and then being there to help answer. I don't know, what can you tell us a little bit about that cognitively, Kelli?
Well, I mean, I think about it like the benefits of like group therapy or support groups are that like there's a shared common experience that brings people together. So as Cami was talking about that, I was thinking that makes perfect sense, because it's like a group of people a situation that's really, really hard. And even though, you know, some are school issues, some are work issues, it's still like we're figuring this out together as a team, kind of like your team did at the university. So I was thinking, you know, that's one of the great benefits of like group therapy is like, oh, I'm not alone in this. There's other people here that know what I'm going through that can offer support and help me. So that's kind of the way I was thinking about it.
That's awesome. That's something I feel like, Cammie, you had mentioned bottling up and taking away from it. I feel like that is a duplicatable thing to be able to take the idea, group therapy. I think most people can kind of not relate, but understand what that looks like. And then say on a business level for me, be like, okay, take my team and maybe have a session where we talk about things, you know, and have, but basically when there's not a pandemic going on and when there's not something that's pushing us together, how can we recreate these positive aspects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what the whole country is going to struggle with, you know, when things do sort of ease back to the norm. I sort of wonder if there'll be a new baseline, a new norm. And I think we'll all sort of grapple with like, what parts of this can we keep, because they're profound and they're very beneficial for lots of different reasons.
Right. So it's important to see the silver lining and stay positive, but then take that same positive as we go on to the next day, you know, the future.
Yeah. And I think some of the things I've noticed for me, and maybe this is contributing to the peace in the home, is this pandemic has forced us to get rid of the noise, right? The noise that we deal with every day, and the overfilled schedules, and the running here and running there. And, you know, like my calendar is clear.
Yeah.
And the personal peace that brings me, right, kind of permeates my home. My husband's the same way. His calendar's clear. The boys' calendars are clear. And so we're not tied down to these schedules that we used to have and everything else around us dictating how we spend our time.
Yeah.
Like we actually now can proactively decide, how do I want to spend my day? I'm going to be done at this time, and now I've got family time because I don't have anything else competing for my attention.
It's true. Almost
Right?
forcing us into that I am in control of my schedule, stepping
Yes.
back and being like, what do I want in my schedule, rather than everything that's kind of almost like we were in like a spiraling, I hate to say and be negative, but like a spiraling downward effect. And this was this massive reset that you talk about, silver lining, to be able to step back and see like, okay, I'm actually glad I had to slow down.
Yes. Yeah, and I can live without, my kids can live without these sports that we all feel like they can't live without, or my kids can live without seeing their friends every night, or, you know, being part of this and this and this. And it's okay. Like the world still goes on.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't have to fall into those patterns of, you know, my kids have to do this and this and this and this and everything they want to do, and it drives me crazy. That's been awesome. That's definitely something I'm gonna try to remember as we come out of this, that hey, I need to keep my schedule, you know, under my control and not be controlled by everybody else's schedule.
Because it seems to me it really is increasing stronger connections with our friends and our loved ones, even though I know we've had social distance, or physical distance, as we like to say, but those stronger connections, the deeper connections, because, you know, with our loved ones or whatnot, and having and making that choice going forward to, I want to make that my priority, rather the empty things that we fill our schedules with.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's really helped us to get back into line with our values and what's important to us.
I like
feel
that.
more aligned with that.
Yeah. In the last podcast, we had actually mentioned, what if going forward they had a stay-at-home week to, you know, save the planet, or to, like, things are getting a little crazy. Let's go ahead and have, maybe people would look at it a little differently than before. Everyone would be like, yeah, right, whatever. No one's got time for that. But now we realize, because we've been through it, wow, that actually could be a good thing. Like Kelli had mentioned, you know, the pollution, and we talked about how the impact on the earth, and just how maybe this kind of overall silver lining, if you will, is that, yeah, it's okay to step back and take a second. Like, it's okay.
Yep.
Not 3 months, but
No. Well, and from a professional standpoint, being a female in the business world, because I've spent most of my career in the accounting field, it was always a big challenge for me to find that balance between mom and professional. And I had really good companies that allowed me to work at home a lot, but I'm really hopeful for anyone out there who wants to work at home, whether they're the mom, the dad, the partner, whatever, that I hope businesses really realize that working from home is not taboo anymore. It shouldn't be,
agreed.
right? People, from my perspective, people that work at home are as productive or more productive than people that go into the office because they have to be. And
Right.
so I really hope from that sense, from looking at it in that way, that businesses realize that business can be done differently and employees can work differently. And it really opens up the flexibility for people to have the atmosphere that they want, to be able to work at home when they need to, when they want to, so that they can manage all the aspects of their lives, and for businesses to have comfort that it's doable. We
Right.
had to do it. We forced our employees to do it. We allowed them to do it, and business was great,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And from a wellness perspective, that is increasing the wellness for these employees because they are in an environment where if they need to take their dog out, they can, or if they need to stop for a second and help their kid with schoolwork, or arrange somehow where they're not 30 minutes away from that child anymore, they can structure, with their children or with their animals or however it looks like for people, but they can have a better wellness because they're taking time for themselves when it's needed. If you're sick, you can actually work because you want to stay in bed because your body might not feel well, but you're able to do like work on your computer. If that's a possibility for people, it looks like, if that makes sense. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but
No.
for me, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I've chatted with others and they've said that their productivity in their company has increased and they weren't expecting it. They were actually expecting a decrease, but they had to do it. And so, like Cami was saying, this kind of door that we were pushed into, nobody would have really done it, but yet we're seeing all these positive things come from it. And, like I said, the wellness of people and their mental state is better. So, therefore, you get a better productivity. And I do believe the companies, as they've put people working from home, have had a quantifiable way to, that productivity. Let me say this, and this is again a little bit of a tangent, but before I've seen where an employee goes into work and they're on their computer or whatnot and they dilly dally or they get up and they do this or they're actually wasting more time because they're clocked in, so it's
Yeah.
okay. But when you're home, like I said, at that quantifiable approach, you have to be able to check this, this, and this, and be able to show your employer, I am working, I am doing this. And so it actually seems to be creating more productivity.
Yeah, and I just think overall, from the students, how the students are dealing, it's really just, I hope it opens the doors of what works for each individual.
Right.
Are they better off coming into the office or coming to school and being in a place, face to face setting? Or do some of the students and the kids and the employees, do they do better at home? What is going to make each individual person the very best that they can be? And
Yes.
can we accommodate that?
I think that's wonderful. And for the first time, it might actually be looked at. Like, that's right. We were talking about, in a previous conversation, we were talking about how some students are thriving and able to focus more, and others really do need that classroom setting. And like we, compared with employees as well, but how wonderful if we could go forward and have the option so that there were
Yeah.
some teachers that taught in school and there were some teachers that taught online and really help across the board. Like, to me, that would be a wonderful overall silver lining.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we don't just say, let's go back to the everybody fits in this box, right? And we're just
Right.
going to shove them all in there. Let's say, hey, maybe we could do things differently. Maybe we could see what works best for each individual person, each individual student, each individual employee. and let's try to accommodate it, because if everybody's working at their best, there's nothing but good that comes out of that for everyone.
Absolutely. I love it. I think to be able to step back, see the silver lining from either work, family, personal, in any situation. I mean, we are discussing the pandemic that's, facing us right now, but really in any situation going forward, if we can step back and just take a breath, it really goes hand in hand with mindfulness, being able to just be present, take a breath, sit with it, and allow yourself to feel a certain way. It's okay. And then focus on what you can do with it. Focus on the positive that you can take from it, and really apply that to ourself and be better people because of it in our own accord. I just want to thank you so much, Cami, for being with us today, and thanks for telling us a little bit of what it looks like for you and going through all of this. And Kelli, thanks so much for again being with us. And I'll probably lock that last part out, guys, because I'm just like but that's okay. Oh, you guys are awesome.
You can do that.
I know, I love cut and paste.
So much fun.
Thanks again for joining us today. As you go throughout your week, we hope that you can take these things and apply it to your life the way that it looks best for you to increase your wellness. Have a great week. And remember, please wash your hands.